We have two really angry women in our readings today. There's no doubt about that. The first in the Old Testament lesson is the daughter of Saul, Michal, however you want to pronounce it. She was looking out the window watching David bring the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem with clanging cymbals and tambourines and a trumpet paving the way. Here comes David dancing mightily. I still have trouble imagining what exactly that looks like, but he's into it. All right, let's just leave it at that. He's dancing for all he's got. And she looks out the window and despises him. Isn't that something? Scripture doesn't give us much indication about their relationship before this or after this. But at this point in the readings, all we know is that she's looking out at this parade and her heart fills with anger and she's despised at David. Was it because he was too joyful? Was it because she didn't want the ark in Jerusalem? Was it because she wasn't there? Who knows? There are as many theories as there are years that have passed since this scripture was first written. All we know is that the translation has been very clear for thousands of years. Despised him. Meanwhile, we have an unnamed woman who despises John the Baptist. John is going around preaching, and we've seen this throughout the early parts of the gospel, especially in Mark. He's going around telling everyone, "Behold, there is one who follows me that is the Son of God, one who is greater than me. I'm not fit to untie the thong on his sandals." And this preaching got him notoriety, and we hear from our gospel lesson today, got him the favor of Herod. I love the fact that we get to hear the gospel in addition to reading it, because just in the last few minutes I picked up something that I hadn't noticed in my previous reading of it this morning, and that is that Herod was pleased to listen to the preaching of John the Baptist. So how is it that we arrive at this place where Herod orders poor John's head on a platter? Well, it turns out in the old days, marriage was based more on politics than on love. And we have one heck of a political mess going on here with this Herod, who, by the way, is not the same Herod that we hear about earlier in the Gospels, who was king of Israel at the time Jesus was born. That was Herod the great builder of Israel, who had more construction projects than any Israeli king going back to Solomon. He passed away right after Jesus was born, right after, frankly, Herod the Great ordered the slaughter of the innocents. And so the Romans decided, well, we're going to split Israel up into three and give three different regions to the sons of Herod. Herod Antipas, who we read about today, Philip, and Archelaus. All right, so these gentlemen are all running their various regions of Israel. And the gospel is complicated in today's reading, but it's worth pointing out specifically what's going on here. It's not a misprint. Sue read it exactly the way it's written in Scripture. This woman is married to Philip, and this woman's married to Philip's brother, Herod Antipas. What? There's no explanation what's going on here. There's no explanation of how we got into this situation. All we know is that at some point, Herod and the mother had a daughter, Herodias. And so we come to this celebration of Herod's birthday when, by tradition, the father gives a gift to his children, and apparently Herod had deep affection for his daughter, a special place, as many fathers do, for her in his heart. And when he said, "What would you like as your gift? I'll even give you half of my kingdom," which we all now know is really only a third of Israel, right? "I'll give you even half of my kingdom." She has no response. She, like, we're presuming this is a teen, she, like many teenage daughters, went to mom to say, well, what should I ask for? And mom says, John's head on a platter. Pure evil. Pure evil. And it's easy to think then, looking back at the Old Testament lesson, that she despised John in the same way that Michal despised David. And yet it's unclear as to why. What message are we to take from this? Sitting here in Oakwood and St. Gabriel's in 2015, what lesson is the church trying to teach us today by tying these two readings together? Is it simply to stand back and observe the fact that people have been bad for a long time, right? There's a news flash, everybody. Or is it to look for some deeper meaning? Is it look some deeper meaning? I think that we can find that if we try. In the Old Testament lesson, notice that even though Michal looks out the window and despises David, he still goes on. He still brings the ark to Jerusalem. He still ultimately sets up the covenant and the Holy of Holies, and then Solomon, who follows him, builds the temple around that. This is the way the nation of Israel was structured for over 1,000 years later. Meanwhile, poor John lies in his prison, dead. And the last line of our gospel reading today is not one of hatred, not one of anger, not one of despising anybody or violence. It's one of love. The last line of our gospel lesson today is that the disciples of John came to get him and give him a burial. That even in this gruesome moment of violence and hatred, there is love. And that, after all, is what Herod was worried about in the first place. Notice the whole start of this gospel lesson is the simple question, who's Jesus? And notice we have kind of, if this is a soap opera, and boy, at certain points it sounds like it, doesn't it, as the world turns? If this was a soap opera, notice how the gospel lesson starts out. Who's Jesus? Herod says, it may be John the Baptist come back to life. And then we have this kind of graying out of the TV screen as we have a flashback to what actually happened to poor John, right? Herod's theory is that this is John come back to life. But he's wrong, isn't he? He's wrong. It's the symbol of love. It is the essence of love. It's the sign of God's love for us. It's the incarnation of God's love that John was there to announce and behold, and who his disciples directly reflected in that prison when they came to get him and bury him. And it's that unconditional love that continues to make us Christians and make us Episcopalians and make us a parish at St. Gabriel's. As we go through our discussions about what it is that St. Gabriel's is here for, the purpose of this parish, the words I keep hearing over and over again are unconditional love. If there's one thing that we want to be known for in Oakwood or in Hall County or in North Georgia or anywhere, unconditional love is a pretty good thing. Pretty good thing. And it reminds me that part of that unconditional love is reconciliation. Part of that unconditional love is forgiveness and a welcoming back. And so this week I've been talking with our parish administrator and asked her for a list of folks who've left St. Gabriel's in the last 12 months so that I can reach out to them and express our unconditional love and welcome them back to our parish. Now, nobody may take me up on that, but I figure that's at least a good start to try and express the unconditional love that we are here to celebrate every day of the week, but especially on Sundays. And so I would encourage you, as I make this effort, to give me names of folks that you think it would be good for us to reach out to and to say, you know what, we want you to be a part of our community and make that offer of unconditional love to them. Finally, I want to leave you with a note of reconciliation that's an important part of my life, at least, and in the Sanders family, and that is Major League Baseball. On Tuesday night, the nation will come together once again to celebrate the All-Star Game. It's a highlight in the Sanders house, and in fact, we're such big baseball fans, we gather around to watch the Home Run Derby on Monday nights too. But Tuesday night is especially a time of reconciliation because the people of Cincinnati, where the game will be held, and who are Cincinnati Reds fans, got together and voted over the last few months who are the top 4 living members of the Cincinnati Reds that we want to represent us in an on-field celebration prior to the All-Star Game. And one of those Cincinnati Reds is the great Pete Rose. I see many around who are old enough to remember when he actually played, as I do. And I love the way that he played the game and the way that he had such intensity, and his approach to the game followed it the right way. In fact, we think about David in our Old Testament reading today dancing mightily. Pete Rose played baseball mightily. I have told my kids more times than they can count.